about great beer, great conversation, and community. Whether in a bar in Budapest after the collapse of the Soviet Union or a late night club in Tuscany.
The rebels in Chiapas or on a CTA bus or a neighborhood tavern in Chicago.
Or in war-torn Bosnia, the best conversations were always over a bottle of beer. A hearty toast?
And an honest handshake.
I'm W.C. Turk, Chicago author and activist.
And I'm Brian Murray of Permacult.tv.
This is the Revolution in Beer Show. Today we're in Andersonville talking fracking.
Looks like the bar's open.
Let's hit it. Thanks for joining us on the first Revolution and Beer Show on television, actually. A couple of quick things I wanted to say to the guests at home. Thank you for joining us, first of all, on our first show. This is going to be a great show. It's going to be important. It's going to be an important resource, particularly for people who want to get active. Today, obviously, we're talking about fracking. A quick word about Brian and I. We are not media insiders. We're not media people. We picked up a radio show. It's called Revolution in Beer. But we're activists first. And our job, our responsibility is to help you become active and engaged in the community and some of these issues.
And beer drinkers.
And beer drinkers. If you're going to get active and engaged, do it with a good beer in your hands. We'd also like you to join in the debate, and we don't want, this is about information, this is about learning, and this is about giving you the tools to go out and teach people as well. So we don't want you to just hear what we say and necessarily believe what we say. We'd like you to be your own judge of this information. We will throughout the show. You'll see the links up on the screen to the information that we're referencing, ways for you to become active. And an activist in this issue. We'd like you to engage that. You can follow along with us on that media throughout the show, so you can have a broader and deeper context of what we're discussing throughout the show. And that brings us to our guests. In the middle over here, joining us is the lovely, talented, always passionate Dr. Lora Chamberlin. She's an environmental activist who has been passionately engaged in the fracking issue and environmental issues overall, both nationally and here in Illinois. Thanks for joining us, Lora.
Absolutely, yes. We started Stop the Frack Attack, and we've formed a coalition in Illinois, the Illinois Coalition for a Moratorium on Fracking, and more groups are joining. SAFE, Southern Illinoisans Against Fracturing Our Environment, MoveOn.org, PDA Chicago. Many groups are joining in on this issue.
Not enough to do there?
I'm sorry?
Don't have enough to do there?
I know, we don't have enough to do.
Next to Lora is Dave Funcheon. He's the CEO of 101 Celcius. 101 Celcius is a distributor, installer, and innovator in solar thermal technology. And recently, Dave organized the Chicago's first electric vehicle and alternative fuel vehicle rally here. And next to Brian, last but certainly not least, this handsome gentleman, Michael Roper is the owner of Hopleaf, and is our very gracious host today. So thank you for joining us. One of the reasons that we chose Hopleaf was you're very passionate and eloquent about not only beer, but about the fracking issue and how it relates to beer. And I thought that was an important consideration.
Biggest ingredient in beer is water.
That's it.
And most people don't realize that many breweries do not get their water from a municipal water system. They get them from wells, they get them from aquifers. So it is a vital issue for breweries to protect their source of water.
Mm-hmm.
And just to summarize that for all those working class folks out there that like to drink beer, basically our good beer supply is in danger because of what we're doing to the water. So we're going to talk about exactly how you can deal with that and some of the issues related to it.
If that doesn't motivate America, nothing will. So that brings me to, actually, I'd like to make a toast then to the guests here, because this is Revolution in Beer and we do beer. And if we're going to get active and change the world, let's do it with a decent beer in our hands.
Absolutely, to a first of many great shows.
Thank you very much. As we taste this, Michael, I wanted to ask you, what folks should be looking for in that first taste of beer.
You always want to involve all your senses.
Yes, sir.
So you want to look at the color of the beer. You want to get your nose into it, and you want to keep it in your mouth a little while. So let the mouth feel happen. So you get your sense of touch into it also. You don't want to just guzzle it, the second you pour it. And most importantly, I think to involve all those senses is always pour beer into a glass. Don't drink it out of the bottle. Don't drink it out of the can. Let it open up. Letting it open up is it finishes the process that started in the brewery. If you don't pour it into a glass, let it develop a little frothy head, the beer isn't finished yet. Very specifically to this issue, the founders of the Omegan Brewery, Don Feinberg and Wendy Littlefield, chose the location of this brewery specifically for the water. When they're on about a 400-acre farm in upstate New York, about 10 miles out of Cooperstown, they get all of their water from a well. And it just so happens that years later, after they founded this brewery, the area is now at the very forefront of a fracking and anti-fracking battle. Many of their neighbors have decided to lease their farms for fracking, and of course the owners of the brewery are against this because if they lose their water, they're dead. I mean, the brewery closes. They don't have an alternative. You can't truck water in for a brewery. Breweries use an enormous amount of water. But the thing is a lot of people talk about fracking and jobs. What about the jobs at that brewery?
Precisely.
This employs people too, and it employs the people who not just make the beer, but distribute it, bottle it, make the labels, et cetera, et cetera. So it spreads out pretty widely.
As
And
far as
the whole job issue is really just a bunch of hype too. Food and Water Watch did a great report.
Yes.
Going to hold it up.
Yes.
False jobs promises. And in the fracking industry, basically per well, it's 1.7 jobs that are created, and one of them comes out of state and is a fracking expert, trucked in. So it's 0.7 jobs per wells.
Yes.
And just to give you, for instance, Pennsylvania has slightly over 6,000 wells active right now in Pennsylvania. So, and they're temporary jobs. These are temporary jobs. They don't have health care, and they're extremely dangerous
But
jobs.
fracking is a combination of two technologies, essentially horizontal drilling, and then the ability to pump a propagant into that horizontal well shaft in order to increase the pressure in that area and cause fissures to occur. At which point sand and chemicals get trapped from that propagant, and then natural gas that was otherwise in there is now displaced, put back into that horizontal well hole, and then flows back to the surface. So that is what we call a frack.
It begins to highlight the fact that this is really a precious natural resource, and the volume of water that's necessary for fracking, unregulated fracking, or unaccountable fracking, really begins to have a significant impact in what's available to us as human beings.
Can I talk about the regulations?
I would
versus
love you to.
Because this is another big hype.
Yeah.
There's a lot of PR around natural gas and fracking. So here in Illinois, we're supposed to be having the best in the nation regulatory bill. And it's full of holes, like the water issue. There is they have to report how much they're going to use and where they're going to get it. But there's no way that the local communities can say no. There's no prioritizing the water for farming over fracking. There's no prioritizing the water. They just have to report. That's it. That reporting is not regulations.
Yeah.
Regulations is you get to use this much, you get to use it from here, you get to
Precisely.
use it when, and we're going to let you know if you can have any more.
Yeah.
So we have done the numbers, the math in Illinois. If they frack as many wells as they have in Pennsylvania, they will use every single drop of fresh water in Illinois. Every single drop. Over 1 trillion gallons of water.
I'll chime in on this a little bit about the water resource aspect of this.
Well, I think that there's already an alternative. that works for the water-based hydraulic fracturing, and that is to use propane. And there's a company out there, Gas Frac, it's a Canadian company, that has essentially a technology to replace the water with propane. So you frack a wet gas well, get propane, you use that to then frack an oil well or wet gas or dry gas wells, but instead of water, you use propane. The propane goes down, propane comes back up, and it's reused.
Now, and what would be the downside to using
It's
propane?
50% more expensive today,
Okay.
right? But just like anything, the more it's used, the more it's put into operation, the more anything occurs, the cheaper it gets.
And from a pollutant standpoint,
Well, I mean, they're not using water, so they don't have the flow back.
Okay.
When they push water down, say the average well uses
yeah.
4.5 million gallons. About 1 million gallons returns back to the surface.
what is the aspect of that type of pollution using propane with regard to potentially damaging an
So it's a lot less propane from what I understand. It's about, instead of 4.5 million gallons
Okay.
of water, it's about 3,500, it's 300,000 gallons equivalent of propane being used.
I think one thing that we struggle with culturally in the United States is basically this idea of water and various other resources we take for granted. We assume that these things are renewable or there's some infinite supply of it.
Yeah.
And our, I'm sure we will get into this in the next segment, but we're talking about basically for our deep hunger, our vast hunger for energy, polluting a very vital natural resource. There are a lot of options to that. Why is it that these are the kinds of solutions that our leadership, that our government and our industry come up with, as opposed to exploring other options?
So we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in just a moment with more from our great guests and more great beer. This is the Revolution in Beer Show. We'll see you in a moment.
New from Inferno Brewing, it's Firewater, the beer so good you'll swear they made a deal with the devil himself. Firewater is brewed with water fortified to fracture solid rock a mile below the earth and leave Ohio quaking. Enjoy that natural methane effervescence. It's organic. So reach for refreshing Firewater. Every bottle is fracking great.
Firewater contains water, yeast, hops, barley, methane, and a proprietary mix of fracking chemicals that won't be made public before the year 2085. Please drink responsibly. Always use safety glasses when igniting firewater. Avoid flatulence or laughing near firewater. Urinate only in EPA-designated safe pools. In case of spontaneous combustion, stop, drop, and roll before involving authorities. Inferno Brewing is not liable for any damages related to any use of its product. Discontinue drinking firewater and seek medical attention if you experience any of the following unusual side effects: inverse eyesight, flaming eczema, intestinal tremors, bioluminescence, hubris, uncontrollable blogging, and squirrel brain.
Firewater is currently available in Pennsylvania, North Dakota, Montana, and Ohio, wherever flaming beverages are sold. And coming soon to Illinois. Firewater, it's organic. From Inferno Brewing.
Okay, thanks for joining us again here on the very first Revolution in Beer Show. We're here with our guest, Dave Funcheon from 101 Celcius, Dr. Lora Chamberlin, the firebrand activist from the state of Illinois here, and Michael Roper, the owner and operator of Hopleaf here, which is hosting the show. Where I wanted to begin this segment was from the latest National Geographic article. Did a piece on fracking where they're talking about the boom of fracking, and almost. I don't want to speak for the National Geographic, but it was almost they were almost extolling the benefits of the boom and how it's benefiting these local operators, which seemed somewhat overplayed. But reading between the lines, I sort of had the feeling that this was very reminiscent of the gold rush of the 1840s and 1850s, in which we saw a really irresponsible use of land and resources, an immense amount of pollution, an immense amount of destruction to to the environment, a massive loss of life. I think the estimate for the Native American loss of life is somewhere in terms of 100,000. Abandoned towns, crime. There's not a direct parallel. There's never a direct parallel in history, but I think there are some glaring coincidences or some glaring comparisons that can be made between fracking, the boom of fracking, and the gold rush of the 1850s, and how companies and the government is coming to this at a really irresponsible and unaccountable level.
We need local control. We need counties and communities to
I
be.
totally think you're 100% wrong there.
Oh,
We need
okay.
federal
Good.
control.
Oh, no.
Right. You need
No,
a federal
no
overreaching
one size,
but you need a federal overreaching policy and local control.
And local control. Okay,
Right.
I'll give you that.
So,
I'll give you that. What happens is municipalities and townships can usually determine what's going on in their jurisdictions,
Sure.
but counties cannot. And Ohio is the same thing. So I'm saying what we wanted in our
Yeah.
best of the nation regulatory bill, and why we're pushing a moratorium on fracking right now, is we wanted counties to be able to determine whether or not they could even accept fracking into their counties, or even and also alter the regulations to be tighter in their county, and determine there's not even any zoning county by county. Most of southern and central Illinois are counties. They're not municipalities, and they're not incorporated townships. And the same thing for Ohio. So that's why if we had an overarching federal policy that would bring in the externalities into the economic base, okay, that would be great.
With the
And
oversight
then-
of the local.
with the oversight of the local, being able to make it tighter. And then your communities would be able to ban it in that community.
With the beer. And from my industry, when I started this in 2008, when I started at 101 Celsius, gas, which is priced in 1,000 BTUs, was $14 and I think 80 something cents. That went down to $2 and God, it was like $2.30, $2.40, something like that, and is now, as of last week at the close on Friday, about $3.64 per MMBTU. So I needed around 4 in order to be competitive with nat gas,
Right.
On a solar thermal basis.
Right.
Just so you know where I'm coming from. Fracking, I don't have an issue with fracking because fracking is on a countrywide basis,
Yeah.
right? Responsible for some of our biggest exports. And it just makes things cheaper for industry then to relocate back into the United States, which helps with our jobs crisis.
Precise.
So I am not going to be here dissing fracking.
Yeah.
I will diss water-based fracking because I think that it is an externality that is not caught in the
Important
current,
distinction,
in the current pricing.
Let me ask. Go
So, but I'm going to tie this back to beer now.
ahead. Good man.
So-
Good man.
Right, we
Keep us
have,
on task. That's good.
we have Omegon Abbey Ale. That's a delicious beer, right? Up in upstate, upstate New York.
definitely delicious
I have
beer.
never been to the Omegon factory, but
Industry, I like.
before the beer, the water came in.
Yep.
The water was heated, right? It was thrown into a mash tin along with some grains. The whole thing was heated up using natural gas, right? The whhole process was transferred. They caught some of that energy through a heat exchanger. It went into the secondary fermentation process where the temperature was raised up again, right, using natural gas. It was then, this I think was bottle conditioned, so it went into the bottle.
Yep.
The bottle, though, prior to that brew going in, right, was sterilized using water, and that was heated by natural gas.
Natural gas.
Now, that bottle has got to get from New York to Chicago somehow,
Somehow.
right? So it either goes by rail or it goes by truck, both of which are now being converted to natural gas.
Rail is important, and we definitely should be taking advantage of that
natural gas liquids.
infrastructure.
Thanks.
Breweries use a lot of natural gas.
I've already looked. We've got a couple designs out there to take some of the breweries onto solar thermal.
Yeah.
One of them here in Chicago,
Right.
right? So
Which one?
There we go. Did you hear that? Solar
I could
thermal,
probably
you
throw
guys.
that out there.
Solar thermal.
Revolution Brewing Company.
Yep.
I like those
right
guys.
here, just literally in the heart of Chicago.
In the heart of Chicago.
We're looking at a solar thermal design for that.
Excellent. Thank you for mentioning that.
So, eventually, if we can get the externalities of fracking off,
Yeah.
we can then contain that pollution, because then there is a price on that pollution.
Yeah.
That pollution is eliminated because there is a price.
Bill,
Well,
right
you're
now for
talking
that.
about information,
Yeah.
and people being informed,
Right,
And
bingo,
I mean,
bingo.
this is getting into another issue, kind of a macro issue. I'm going to call it that, which is one of the things we're trying to do, which is basically put this stuff in real terms for people so that they understand what's at stake, so they might feel a little empowered to step up and actually engage their local.
Sure, absolutely.
Governments.
Officials.
And very quickly.
We need to spread information around the world as much as democracy.
That's exactly.
Exactly. So we're gonna go to a break here, and then we're gonna ask the question when we come back from the break about if we're at a point where we can begin replacing some of these technologies, coal, fracking, with renewable, sustainable, clean energies. So we'll have that conversation. And part of the reason we need to take a break is I need to get more beer. So we'll be right back after this. Thank you, Michael. We'll be back in just a moment.
In my shoes, but if you're corner me, you're gonna find a fighter. Your camera's gazing down from cold surveillance towers, but in our darkest hours, it's only getting brighter. Fire's burning higher.
Okay, welcome back to the Revolution in Beer Show. We're winding down here a little bit. I'd like to ask folks to like us on Facebook at Revolution in Beer, or to check us out at revolutionandbeer.com. But most importantly, follow those links that we're giving you on the screen here. And in the last couple of minutes, I wanted to sort of bring this around. Right now, currently demand for energy is outpacing population growth, so we're using more energy. Do we have the capacity right now to begin replacing some of these more polluting or traditional, I guess, for lack of a better term, energy sources with sustainable, renewable, clean energy?
Absolutely.
Are we in
Well,
that
that
There's
would mean
no
that would
question
mean
about
that
it.
you take if you looked at it as 100%, right? You would need
Uh-huh.
to have more than 50% renewable in order to. That would be your threshold, right?
Right.
That would be the line,
Right.
the bright line.
And right now, currently,
at which
we're at
you
about
go
8% of our total energy usage.
Right. So it
is
depends
in
on
renewable.
what we're talking about.
Yeah.
You know, in a brewery, no, I could, even if I covered, say, Revolution Brewing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I covered them with solar thermal collectors.
Right.
It would probably get there, but man, the controls on it would be a nightmare.
And I wanted to ask
But they
Michael.
wouldn't be able to have any roof left over to do photovoltaic.
Sierra Nevada
Yeah.
has the largest solar array of any private company in California. And
Right, and they covered a parking lot.
they cover the parking lot, they
Right.
cover the roof, they cover
Right.
everything. So what they, they
pretty
are
good use
able
of a
to
parking
actually,
lot.
they actually sell electricity back into the grid.
So
So
that was on PV. That's photovoltaic, and they don't.
Yes.
A brewery is not going to use a lot of electricity.
So what
but
about-
They will use a lot of thermal energy.
So what about geothermal infrastructure, starting from?
Geothermals are tricky. You have to be in the right spot. It's got to
They're
be
not in the right
warm
spot.
enough. It's like
There's
Chicago.
a geographic
Yeah,
orientation to it, yeah.
Nevada, fantastic.
Yeah.
Right. Electricity is a thermal. What is it?
Yeah.
What type? And then 50% is your threshold. So
Yeah.
can you get over that? And yes, you can, but it really has to be site by site.
Yeah,
It's got to be
yeah.
very specific as to the type.
And it's not
what you want to do, and really as an organization, right, as a
Mm-hmm.
group of individuals that call themselves progressives,
Yeah.
right? What we want to do
Or radicals,
is support each other, right? We don't want to fall into this trap of Einstein's a perfection of means and confusion of aims. Seems to be our main problem. That was his quote.
Mm-hmm.
That is what's happening here.
Same thing with natural gas when you look at commercial use, when you look at residential use, and you see how people are using or utilizing electricity and fuel in their homes, in their businesses. You begin to get a stronger picture that there are alternatives that can lessen the necessity for natural gas.
Thank you.
without necessarily negating the importance of natural gas. And we are kind of wrapping this up. I actually wanted to give Michael the last word word on this one.
The professional here.
Natural gas is now and is going to be a very, very important thing for breweries. They need natural gas. They need water even more. They need both. And we have to figure out a way of balancing getting the natural gas they need at a price that they can afford and having their natural, the water resources they need also. And so I am hoping that there is a friendly compromise that can happen that gives them both, because there is not an alternative for natural gas in brewing. Really, there really isn't. There used to be coal-fired breweries. There used to be all kinds of things like that. Now responsible breweries like Sierra Nevada, who have created a closed loop and are really within the brewery, are using electricity that they make to do a lot of things. The water that they use to clean is all done from solar. Yeah. They're generating electricity for the vehicles that go around the brewery. But they still need some gas, and they need a lot of gas. So they want both things to happen. And sometimes you can have your cake and eat it too. And this is one of those things we need to work toward. And like I said, it's a nascent technology. I think it's really not being done responsibly. I think that more research needs to be done, and we need to step back. Just step back and figure out how to do it right.
We'd like to thank you for joining us, and we'd like to thank our guests today, Dave Funcheon, Michael Roper, and Dr. Lora Chamberlin, for a great conversation. And folks, that's what it's all about. It's not about the fight.
It's about the solution and the beer.
So join us for the next Revolution in Beer show. Until then, here's to the holidays.
All 365 of them.